Mountain did not simply split open. For a moment, it seemed to disappear inside a blinding column of white heat. Far below the sharp limestone ridges of the Strait of Hormuz, a hidden command hub, the regime's most protected nerve center, was erased before a single warning could make it through the system. There were no spinning radar dishes, no rushed interceptor launches, no dramatic scramble from the S-300 crews. The battery stayed silent, its screens locked in a frozen digital glare. 40 years of secret planning and billion-dollar investment were gone in just 94 seconds. Adversary commanders keep making the same mistake. They build walls of steel and concrete, then convince themselves that depth equals safety. They believe that if a facility is buried deep enough, hidden well enough, and guarded heavily enough, it becomes untouchable. They believed the forbidden fortress of the Gulf had created a checkmate against the United States Navy. But while the crews were still adjusting their sensors and calibrating their equipment, the real answer had already arrived from above. Most analysts misunderstood the logic of the operation. They searched for the aircraft, they searched for the trail, they searched for the visible clue that would explain what happened. They found nothing, because the rules have changed. In the Strait of Hormuz, movement means exposure. Exposure means the clock starts instantly. And in those 94 seconds, the joint forces of the United States and Israel revealed a new reality. Even the deepest fortress still has an open sky above it. To understand how that command center was caught off guard while its defenders were still moving through their morning routine, you have to look far beyond the battlefield, roughly 22,000 miles above the clouds. While Tehran believed its long-range systems were being prepared inside hidden underground bunkers, a silent and tireless watcher was already tracking the faint heat signature of their engines. This is the new high ground: space. The United States Space Force, created in 2019, is not about science fiction or distant future wars. It is about the present: cold, precise, infrared awareness from orbit. The United States has deployed a network of satellites equipped with infrared sensors so sensitive that they can detect a heat source smaller than a glowing cigarette tip from 240 miles away. To put that into perspective, that is roughly the distance from New York City to Washington, D.C. Imagine standing near the Lincoln Memorial and being able to see a tiny match flare in Times Square. That is the level of sensitivity we are talking about. The moment a crew began preparing a ballistic system for launch, they were no longer hidden. To the satellite network, they appeared as a bright and unmistakable bloom on a high-definition screen inside a secure, windowless room somewhere in the American heartland. From there, the data moves almost instantly. It travels through massive white radomes, the giant golf ball-shaped structures scattered across American and Allied territory, where advanced computers process the information at speeds no human team could match. Within moments, the Space Force has a lock. Coordinates are generated, refined, and passed into a platform operating thousands of miles away. The target is identified before the crew on the ground has even completed its pre-launch sequence. But space is only one layer of the operation. While the satellites provide the eyes from above, U.S. Cyber Command and Israel's joint cyber units are already working inside the opponent's network, quietly cutting the connections that hold the defense system together. This is what General Dan Kane describes as layering non-kinetic effects. The goal is not always to take a machine offline immediately. Sometimes the smarter move is to make the machine stop communicating. A radar without a clean data link becomes confused. A launch system without trusted commands becomes slow. A defense network without coordination becomes a collection of isolated screens and unanswered signals. At the center of Iran's air defense claims is the Mirage 4 radar, a system Tehran has promoted as being so advanced that it supposedly makes Russia's S-400 look outdated. On paper, it sounds impressive. Its radar sweep is said to cover about 240 miles, roughly the distance from London to Paris. But impressive specifications mean very little when the system is being fed false information. Right now, the Mirage 4 is not simply watching the sky. It is also being shown digital ghosts. To see the sky, the radar has to speak first. And every time it does, it sends out a powerful burst of electromagnetic energy, a signal so bright that it can be detected from far beyond the horizon. Every time the opposing radar rises to search for a target, the wider tracking network is already waiting to push it back into the dark. The dishes may still be turning, the cooling systems may still be humming, but they are no longer showing the sky as it really is. They are showing an illusion. One commander on the northern edge of the zone sees calm, empty airspace. Another commander just 5 miles away sees his screen flooded with hundreds of phantom targets. Same sky. Two completely different realities. Then at 1:30 in the morning, the physical phase begins, but not in the way the IRGC expected. From the huge internal bays of B-52 Stratofortress heavy bombers operating in international airspace, waves of ADM-16OMMALD decoys slip into the night. These are lightweight ghosts with wings designed for one purpose, to provoke a response. Each ADM-16OMMALD carries a signature system that can imitate the radar profile of larger combat aircraft, including platforms like the B-1B Lancer or the F-15E Strike Eagle. To the operators watching from below, it does not look like a few decoys crossing the dark. It looks like a major, multi-directional American air operation moving toward their protected fortress. Their manuals give them only one response to a threat that large: launch everything they have. And they do. Inside the bunkers, orders are given. Systems come alive. Interceptors leave their launchers one after another. A single Sayat-4B interceptor is believed to cost around $2 million to produce. An ADM-160MMAL decoy costs only a fraction of that. For the next half hour, the IRGC spends years of strategic stockpiles chasing plastic, glass, wiring, and circuit boards across the night sky. Every interceptor used against a decoy is one less round available when the real platforms arrive. But the larger problem is even worse. Every launch gives away another position. It is like switching on a bright flashlight in a completely dark room. The defenders are forced into a trap where their only protective move also exposes them to the very system watching for that reaction. Once the Space Force detects the signal, the digital handoff begins. This is where the coordination between the United States and the Israeli Defense Forces becomes a serious strategic problem for the opposing side. It is called the kill web, but in simple terms, it is an integrated battlefield network where every sensor, aircraft, ship, and command node shares information almost instantly. The data from a satellite 22,000 miles above Earth is pushed at the same time to the cockpit of an Israeli F-35C Lightning II and to the combat information center of a U.S. Arleigh Burke-class destroyer operating in the Gulf. While the commanders below are reaching for headsets to give orders, those communication lines are already unreliable. This is the work of U.S. Cyber Command and U.S. Space Command. Before the first visible action begins, a quiet digital effect has already moved through the opponent's own communications network. Think about the logic of the trap. If the radar switches on to search for the aircraft it believes are coming, it becomes a glowing beacon for systems designed to follow that signal. If it switches off to stay hidden, it loses awareness of the sky, and the coordinates of its position are already stored inside precision-guided platforms waiting far beyond visual range. There is no comfortable choice, no clean option, only a closing circle. In this theater, the United States and Israel operate like one connected system. The F-35C Lightning II becomes the quarterback in the sky, assigning tasks, spotting gaps in the Iranian defense network, and clearing bottlenecks in real time. It is less like a single aircraft and more like a precision instrument guided by thousands of invisible inputs from space, sea, air, and cyber networks all working together. And for anyone who has ever stood watch on the deck of a Gerald R. Ford-class carrier, or for anyone with a son or daughter standing that same watch in the Gulf right now, leave a comment below. But how do you find the one real target hidden among 10,000 distractions? How does the United States Navy know which vehicle is carrying a critical ballistic system, and which one is only a cheap imitation made from plywood, reflective paint, and heat lamps? That is where Project Maven enters the picture. This is AI-assisted military analysis operating at incredible speed. The United States military has been using advanced AI systems, including tools connected to companies like Palantir and Anthropic's Claude, to sort through enormous amounts of sensor data in real time. In older conflicts, a human analyst might have needed to study thousands of satellite images to notice one useful pattern. That process could take days. By then, the launcher would already be gone, the convoy would have moved, and the opportunity would be lost. For an algorithm, that same search can happen in seconds. The scale is difficult to imagine. By March 13th, the United States and Israel had reportedly engaged 15,000 targets. That means new batches of high-priority locations were being identified, checked, and acted on again and again in a constant cycle. The AI filters out the noise. It can ignore simple decoys because they do not behave like real equipment. A wooden imitation with a heat lamp does not have the same thermal pattern, weight profile, movement behavior, or engine signature as a real military vehicle. That difference matters. The system can identify the underground node where the regime is believed to have stored its most valuable hardware. Even when crews move at night during bad weather or inside a heavy sandstorm, they are not as hidden as they think. From orbit, advanced sensors can read through conditions that would stop the human eye. The weather may confuse people on the ground, but it does not fully blind the network above them. The Space Force tracks the heat. The AI calculates the pattern. The targeting system adjusts for wind, distance, and movement before the pilot even reaches the release point. As the operation continued, Iran's strategy began to change. At first, it tried saturation, overwhelming the defenses with volume. Later, it moved toward isolation, trying to preserve what remained. That shift told the story of a fortress weakening from the inside. On the first day of Operation Epic Fury, the regime launched a massive wave, 167 ballistic missiles and 541 drones. The goal was simple: throw enough into the air and hope something finds a gap. It did not work. By day 15, that wave had been reduced to only 4 missiles and 6 drones. What began as a storm had become a trickle. Every time a crew moved a launcher into the open, the overhead network was already watching. Before the truck could fully stabilize, before its leveling jacks could even settle into the ground, a standoff weapon from a USF/A-18 Super Hornet was already on its way. Iran spent years and enormous amounts of money building a ballistic missile stockpile believed to include more than 2,000 units. That money could have gone to ordinary people, infrastructure, or the future of the country. Instead, it went into a strategy built around raising the cost of intervention. The idea was that any response would be too expensive, too risky, and too politically difficult for the United States to sustain. But the math changed. If Iran launches a missile costing millions, and that missile is intercepted before it reaches anything important, the investment disappears. At the same time, a far cheaper precision munition can disable a key part of the launch network. That is the new equation. Not just stronger force, but smarter force. It is like watching a giant machine brought to a stop by one precisely placed pin. The United States did not only outspend the regime, it outplanned it. Billions have been invested to keep the sea lanes open and to make sure the Strait of Hormuz remains a route for global commerce, not a checkpoint controlled by intimidation. That is the larger purpose behind the technology, the carriers, the destroyers, the aircraft, the satellites, and the people standing watch around the clock. Do you think that investment in naval technology is worth it? Do you believe stability through overwhelming capability is one of America's most important contributions to the world? Share your thoughts below. We want to hear your view on the value of the American shield. The coordination between the United States and Israel reportedly removed most of Iran's air defense network from the fight, with a large portion disrupted in the first 24 hours. This was not done through an old-style bombing campaign. It was done through layered pressure, satellites, cyber operations, electronic effects, decoys, aircraft, ships, and precision systems all working as one connected machine. Iran brought a 20th century fortress mindset into a 21st century battle space. And it learned too late that the highest ground is no longer a mountain ridge, a buried bunker, or a concrete command room. The highest ground is space. So where does that leave the forbidden fortress of Hormuz? It leaves it as a symbol of an outdated belief, the belief that enough rock, steel, distance, and secrecy can protect anything forever. The United States and Israeli kill web has shown that in modern conflict, hiding is far harder than it used to be. The Iranian regime now looks up at a sky it no longer fully controls, searching for platforms it cannot see, while waiting for pressure it cannot easily stop. They had lost their vision. What remained was a powerful but blinded force reacting to shadows, while the United States Navy and the IDF moved with the calm precision of a surgeon's hand. This was the kind of technological contest Tehran had not truly prepared for. They had planned for older forms of confrontation, visible formations, predictable movements, and familiar patterns on the ground. What they faced instead was a coordinated, space-supported targeting network operating at a speed no human command room could match. The balance sheet of this operation is remarkable. In only a few weeks of integrated action, the United States and Israel disrupted a regional threat structure that had taken 4 decades to assemble. The lesson was clear: sequence can matter more than raw power. The Space Force provided the vision. AI provided the focus. The United States Navy and the IDF delivered the final pressure. Together, they turned what was once presented as an untouchable wall into a system that could no longer function as intended. For the Iranian regime, it became a strategic disaster. Decades of investment, planning, secrecy, and irreplaceable assets were placed behind a fortress that was never truly sealed from above. They had built their future around the idea that depth meant safety. But in the modern battle space, the sky has become the open door, and in just 94 seconds, that entire assumption collapsed. For the United States Navy, the Space Force, and the families of the veterans who spent years preparing for moments like this, it was the result of discipline, patience, technology, and constant readiness. To the rest of the world, it looked extraordinary. To them, it was the standard they had trained for.